Yeah, so executive directors and assistant principals wherever in the school leadership team have been briefed on this. As soon as there's a principal, they'll be having orientation, and this will be part of it. This is not going to be the last time we talk about it among the principals. During when the principals do orientation in July, we're going to talk about it again, just so everybody's clear on this. This will be a document that that they'll hopefully have on their desk and nod here. So that's how we'll do that. Yeah, a follow up? Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, I sense the anxiety, and that's fair. But guys, this is what we do, right? We bring in new principals, we make sure they understand the rules. It's way more than defined autonomy that we're training them on, right? Most people that come from the outside to us, if they're new, are not instructional leaders. Most of them. We'll have to train them to be instructional leaders in all kinds of things. But I want to assure you, even if it's late in the day, come August, and they have some things that, oh wow, we need to change the testing calendar, we need this or this. This team is going to be here all year long. So, and Rebecca Dre and Monica Zdrajewski is going to help with that. So, and they have a couple other people that will be on this team. We will do what makes sense, especially for A&B. And I apologize, you're all waiting. Go ahead, back in that. Yes, Judy.
Regarding field trips, I know you said we'll be able to do field trips that we normally do. One thing that we ran into this year, some field trips are scheduled up to a year in advance, and all of a sudden at the last moment, the math testing dates were changed, and it was expected that, either of those field trips can just be rescheduled, but when you have every school in a division trying to do that, it's nearly impossible. So we did lose field trips that had been scheduled, special field trips that the kids had been looking forward to, that older siblings had done, that they then were no longer able to do from that last minute change in the math testing dates. Do you anticipate that those will be set and remain as set from the beginning of the school year?
Yes. We just had a meeting last week or Monday, I can't remember when, on the testing calendar. We set the math dates, we set the dibbles dates, we set all kinds of dates. It's a huge schedule. But the answer is that assessment calendar should remain unchanged. Now, I say that, and if we have not a hurricane, but some other storm that requires us to shift it, then we'll shift it for that reason. But other than correct, our natural disaster, some other things out of our control, okay, acts of God, then we will keep the dates the same. Okay, yes, and then I'll come up. I'm sorry, this lady is also, so you and
So I really appreciate this published material. Thank you so much, because it clarified a lot of questions. My question is, I understand we have autonomy over budget, and I applaud you for increased teachers' salary and compensation. My question is based on the teacher compensation, the pay for performance. Like, how is that structured? Is that for growth only? And does that come out of the campus budget? That's the first part of my question.
yeah, thanks for asking. Remember, we haven't walked through this yet. So during this next year, all the way until end of February, we will be meeting with teachers and focus groups of teachers and principals and talking about the evaluation system that we will put in place the following year, right? So at that time, I'll have a better answer for you. But the broad answer is this. Every evaluation system should take into account several different things. One is definitely achievement. One is definitely quality of instruction. The third one is action plan, which means the school puts together an action plan for their school. The principal is held accountable for that. But principals don't feel like they should be held accountable if there's not buy-in from the staff. So the staff also has a part of that action plan in their school. And then the last couple of things are student climate survey, for example. But we're going to debate that and discuss that all next semester. Okay? And you had a follow-up with it. Go ahead.
So I know I was at the workshop yesterday, and thank you for explaining the PUA, the base PUA. So, and I believe it's $6,020 per student, that's the base PUA. So every school, every non-AS school is receiving that 6,020, or is that's just an average?
That's an average. Because the PUA differs based on at-risk factors, how many special ed kids you have, how many emerging bilingual kids you have, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so that's where the disconnect is, because in the past, when we're giving the base PUA, across the board, everybody is receiving that same PUA, so maybe we need some clarification, because I've definitely know some schools is getting less than that, and I just wanna make sure, you know, especially the kids, economic disadvantaged in the past they weighted, and I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, they still are rated, and it's exact same rates. So the per pupil funding that you got, that the schools got a year ago, we kept that per pupil funding the same because that per pupil funding had the weights in them. So we kept the same. The only difference is we accounted for declining or increasing enrollment and ADA, average daily attendance, and even then we capped it at 12%, and 23 schools were in that category. The others were less than that. But I see what you're saying, because you couldn't see the base, it looked like the risk factors weren't applied, but they were.
Yeah, so what if the school did not receive the same, PUA as you presented? Will the principal be able to go to get that adjusted?
Yeah, so for example, we do a true-up all the time. And if a principal believes that they haven't been given the right ADA amount or the right amount of risk factors, they can go to finance or call the executive director of finance, support rather, and they can look at it closely. The other thing is when you actually get your enrollment and your ADA, we will do what's called true-up, meaning if you get more kids, you get more money. If you get fewer kids, you get less money, right, in the fall.
But the true-up happened in the fall, and we need to hire the teachers now.
That's right. So this happens everywhere, and that true-up will cause some teachers to be excess. Okay, so the district once we get those teachers in an excess pool, then it becomes the district's problem. The school has to determine, if you get 70 fewer kids, that's probably 3 teachers. Okay? So if you get 70 fewer kids, that's probably 3 teachers. Principal's gonna have to decide which 3 has to leave. And those 3 will become excess because they have a contract. So then we will use them to fill a school that has more kids, or we will use them to fill vacancies. Okay? All right. This lady's been waiting patiently, and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I heard you said that next year would be a district of innovation. I know that's a great plan to get.
We're district innovation now. Go ahead.
Great, so that's, I know it's a great plan to get teachers in the classroom, but are you going to be using it for like elementary, like getting intervention teachers, or are you just using it for career technology classes?
Yeah, that's a great question because it intersects the certification debate. So for District of Innovation, we said that in our career technology CTE courses, tech ed courses, that if we had a specialty subject like AI in the workplace or some specialty course, then we would get professionals from outside and they wouldn't need teacher certification. We are still trying to hire first teachers with certification, and there are several subjects where we can only hire teachers with certification, like special education, like pre-K teacher, and emerging bilingual. So we are still going to try to get certified teachers first before we go to non-certified. We think we're going to do a better job this year than we did last year. Let me jump over here and I'll come back here, okay? Because I've been, yes, ma'am, and then we'll go.
Yes, well, first I also wanted to thank you for this clarification, and I really hope that this helps run this year more smoothly for everyone so that we are on the same page. And also I wanted to ask if you could expand a little bit more on the autonomy regarding bell-to-bell instruction, if we have any flexibility in, fitting in some school events or assemblies.
Answer is yes. So A and B schools, or level 3 and 4 schools, can have autonomy on bell-to-bell instruction. How does bell-to-bell instruction look? Now, what you raised, let me just give you an indication of how hard it is sometimes to get people on the same page. I can imagine some executive director going to a school, trying to raise the quality of instruction, seeing that it's taking 5 minutes or 6 minutes for kids to get settled down in a classroom, and then going to the principal and saying, hey, come on, that's a waste of time. You should do better at bell-to-bell instruction. Boom, all of a sudden, we got conflict. People think we're running the school, and they're not. They're suggesting to the principal, hey, come on, 6 to 10 minutes to get settled down, that's not good. I don't care what school you're from. You follow me? So I just said you're gonna have some autonomy over that, but the expectation is that the principal is still trying to do good instruction. Okay, so that's why there's always this confusion, and we just gotta do things that make sense. It doesn't make sense to have bell work or kids taking 10 minutes to settle down. Okay? So that's what we gotta do. I saw you again, thank you, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure if I need this, but I'm glad I have one. I know that you love the word sense making, and your administration loves the word sense making, so I appreciate the opportunity to come here to try to sort of make sense to the people that have been on the outside, trying to look in and understand what's going on. In July 2023, you came to our school at West Pryor Middle School, and you promised our community that you would not be making changes if we continued to be high performing. Under the TEA accountability system, our principal was in our school were rated B. Yet you told her that her IRT scores, the average of them, were too low, and therefore she was forced to resign. We like to use the word fired, because truly that's what we believe it was. How do you, and how does your leadership, including the West Division leadership, build confidence in the plan that you were talking about now, when we have seen that we're actually not autonomous, even though we're high performing?
There's a couple of things I want to challenge. And one, I've always said that there was going to be improvement in instruction across the board. That's what we do, that's what I do. I did say we'll try to minimize the impact on A and B schools as much as possible, that we would limit the changes to A and B and other schools as much as possible. I never said there wouldn't be any changes at all. So, and I'm telling you now, the mistake was not to write it down and show you that on that sheet that applies across the board. Now you know for sure it's in writing what's across the board for instruction. So we are where we are. You're very clear on that, on what is applied across the board, especially from instruction. If you're not clear, then
I'm really
maybe
not clear.
You're not clear about instruction?
I don't feel like you just answered that question at
I'm
all.
not done with answering the question,
But acknowledge that we do have high achieving, and that's where you're saying that we aren't achieving, but we are.
Well, I didn't say you're not achieving. First of all, I said just now, and I'll repeat it, that I never said that there wouldn't be any impact on the school, on the schools that are in B. I said I would minimize the changes as much as possible. I've always said from the very beginning that we would look at instruction and try to raise instruction. And we're going to continue to do that. If you look at Destination 2035, which was published the first week I got here, you will see that I said in there that we would improve instruction across the board. That instruction across the, let me finish. That instruction across the board is held, and we're going to continue to do that. And the autonomies will still be strong. The second thing, I know I'm the superintendent. I actually don't evaluate any principal. I didn't tell you, your principal, that they weren't good or they were fired or anything else like that. We do have a process for that, the evaluation process, and the executive director is probably the one who made that call, backed up by the division superintendent. So that is how the evaluation process works. It's not a guess, it's not a subjective, it's not, based on subjectivity, like whether we like you or not, it's based on data. And so, I'm sorry if you feel like your principal wasn't treated right. I don't know that principal.
Maybe you should, because she was incredible, and she did amazing things for our community.
Well, obviously, I can't get into personnel issues here. I can talk about the evaluation system if you want, but I can't talk about any individual person. I would remind you of this, though. And I'm not saying this happened to your principal. I'm saying this. Prior to my getting here, the principal evaluation was not rigorous. Whether a principal was effective or not, there was 100 different ways to measure that. In fact, in most cases, it wasn't rigorous. And the district had a hard time removing principals that weren't effective. You may not recall that in the summer, I removed several principals who the superintendents before me had tried to remove. And so, and we did that because politically, they weren't able to remove them. And that's no way to run a business. That's no way to run a district. There has to be some data that you use. And yes, it may be an imperfect system, but at least it's a lot more transparent and aligned. It makes much more sense the way you're doing it. The second thing I'll say, and then I'll go to you for a question, is sometimes you don't have all the information. It reminds me of Eastwood High School earlier this year. Eastwood. We removed 2 teachers and an AP. And the next thing you know, there was a protest and walkout. This has to do with NES, which it didn't, but it has this to do with the takeover and stuff like that. 3 weeks later, when it was able to be published, that because TEA got the forms, there was sexual harassment, and we needed to remove them for that reason. We couldn't talk about it. But there was a rush to judgment about what was actually happening. And I can tell you, and I'm not going to tell you any specific cases, I can tell you that because that was already public. And the kids were, bless them, they don't know. They take their cues from adults. They went out, out of the school, which is dangerous for them. And then later they find out what actually happened. And it's like, oh. And we should not do that. And I'm telling you that in some cases, the principals have some other issues that we cannot talk about until it goes in front of TEA, if they appeal. And sometimes they just resign without us being able to tell you what happened, because we have an agreement. So there's always some reason. And in other cases, it's about performance, and we can debate that, we can argue that, and that's fair. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Hello. Okay. Just real quick on that, our principal was new this year. Our test scores went down, actually. She was not asked to leave. That
Yeah, so, you know, we only have X amount of dollars, and you're an autonomous school. I've been a charter school leader. I know how to do a budget. And the point is, you get X amount of dollars and you make some choices. And they're always tough choices if you don't have a lot of money. And so the point about autonomy, and when I was a charter school CEO, we had complete autonomy for our, at that time, 7 schools, now there are 11 schools and 13 schools, but we had complete autonomy. We chose the staff, and nobody told us what to do about anything. And that's the level of autonomy you have on staffing. That's the point. But you have to make tough choices too. And you have to make tough choices as well about your staffing. And so you have the money that you had prior to extra dollars. I think you're going to make it work. And by the way, every principal has turned in a budget that they say will make it work for their school. Well, the principal, the leadership team turned it in on May 8th. Whoever was leading the school at that time, or the AP, turned in the budget.
Prior to this program
Yes.
being put out.
So thank you very much for this. This is great. And I too actually worked for a charter school as director of budgets for Yes Prep Public School, so very high quality charter public school. So I understand school funding and per pupil allotment and all of that. So nationally, Texas ranks in the bottom half of per pupil funding annually, despite years of economic growth, oil money, and all kinds of things that are amazing about Texas and why I moved here almost 20 years ago, and my husband as well. Where do you stand on public school funding, and how are you working with our local representatives as we go into this legislative session?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I have one charge here. We have 274 schools. The charge is to improve the schools, especially our low performing schools, so that we can return the district back to state elected board members. That's the charge. The charge is not to grow charter schools. The charge is not to privatize schools, nothing. And so you'll see me working hard on 274 schools. That's the charge. So getting to your question, what we're hoping to do, and what I've said to TDA already, is that we need more school funding. So we haven't had a growth in the state allotment since 2019, and that's going to hurt over time. Now, what you haven't heard me say though is to say, first of all, we can't do any reform because we don't have any money. That's what ineffective superintendents do. The mission is do what you can with the resources you have, prioritize your resources, and try to improve the schools. Having said that, and having done that, because we improved it in the schools incredibly, you're going to see that. We're going to move out of state intervention faster, I hope, than otherwise. But having said that, we need a greater amount of state allotments, greater revenue coming in. So I'm going to continue to push where I can push. Our lobbyists will continue to push where they can push to get more allotment dollars.
Does that mean actual, when you say where you can push, can you define that, please?
So, you know, I'm not a legislator, and the way I can push is when I interact with TEA, Texas Education Agency, and sometimes at the highest levels, I can say, look, please push the legislator, push the governor for more dollars for public education. Even if the voucher bill passes, I think the biggest need for us, not just us, public education is more state allotment dollars. So that's my position. And again, with the lobbyists from Texas Urban Council, for example, I'm a member of that, we're a member of that. We push through the lobbyists to say, hey, we need more state funding.
Okay, I'd like to echo
Yes.
as well.
Okay.
The appreciation of the packet is great. There's files or documents that were not printed because they are likely to change. Is that why they're not printed? The two sheets that we took pictures of?
The appendix?
Yes.
So what Mr. Mall showed, that will be added to the appendix, so it's going to be in the live version that lives on the website.
Okay, is it likely to change at all?
You're talking about these two slides that I showed with the details?
Correct.
These two slides are a working document.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Oh, so
it's not gonna change greatly unless the principals have a reason, make a case to change it, but these are pretty straightforward. So, if they change it all, it's gonna be with the support of the principals advisory council, you see that? But we're gonna be adding to it probably. You have followed?
Well, I'm gonna ask, how long we know that the effective date of when it depends on the class, but you're saying it's gonna be changed. They're going to be changed.
Well, it's gonna be added to, yeah. I mean, because this week, I just put this out to principals yesterday or the day before.
Is there gonna be a final date so that all principals know what to expect?
So the principals already have this document, and it's a working document, so they know that this is what they can expect. And then if we add things to it, we'll brief everybody on it. Yes, ma'am, and then we'll come back to it.
Hello. Hi. So I know at the beginning you kept saying how you take the fall for all the miscommunication that has caused, in my opinion, so much ruckus throughout the district. Just for example, our school has been sped through like a tornado with staff loss because of basic miscommunication. Because you're saying, oh, we have autonomy, you can do this, I don't know where you get that from, yeah, you can do this, like making light of it, but in reality, it's not a slight situation. So my main question is, what are you gonna do to ensure your communication? Because you say one thing, and then when it comes down what's actually going down in schools, when the EDs come in, they have a whole different outlook or say.
Yeah.
I know that you say you're the superintendent, but everything has an org chart. So your EDs, I'm assuming, are up under you. So whatever they do, it's either trickling down for you, or they're just going rogue and going to the schools and do whatever they feel like is best for the day. Because we've had EDs come into the classroom and rip blinds, rip down curtains and say pictures and say that it's stupid. Just little things like that. So I feel like it's important. I appreciate you taking accountability for, the communications off, but I need you to say it and mean it and tell us what are you gonna do to make sure the communication is concrete all across the board. Like if you say that 2, 3, and 4 has this, I need your EDs to also say, I'm aware 2, 3, and 4 has this, you guys can do this, and not however they feel or whatever it is in their brain that's right, that trickles down. And like I said, the communication, our school, I can almost cry. We have lost so many teachers. Great teachers because of communication from them saying
On your watch.
they have to have their doors open. They have to do this. The kids can't go outside. Kids can't do this.
They have to take cones to the bathroom.
People from the district.
Family school, it started like a YMCA, just to give you some backstory. Our school is a family, and our family has been ripped apart because of lack of communication. Environmental charter school has been ripped apart
that was an
because
IB
of
school too.
failure in communication from, like I said, you say it's good, do that, yay, but then everybody else, the EDs come in, they're like, that's stupid, take it off, don't do this, don't do that.
Yep.
So what are you gonna do to give us some consistency in communication?
For example, the cone, which the child told you she had to take, but you say we don't.
Let me answer the question, please.
Yeah.
So this document is part of that. This document is part of it. Imagine this, because this is how change works in a big, big district.
No, it doesn't.
I'm sorry, I'm speaking.
I know, but I
So,
also,
this is
you're
how
lying.
Let him talk.
This is how change works in a big, big district, right? You have 274 autonomous schools, and you want them going in one direction. How do you do that with 11,000 teachers, half of whom did not want the state intervention? Maybe more than half. A third of the principals who did not want the state intervention. Executive directors who were not used to instructional feedback. Principals and teachers who are not used to instruction in the classroom or people visiting the classroom. 11,000 teachers, 274 principals, and a number of EDs. All autonomous in a year. And the question is, how do you get them going in one direction in order to improve student achievement that we haven't been able to do? So we did a lot of sense making and training and coaching. The reason why, and it's not perfect, and implementation is everything, but we must have done something right to get the achievement gains we got. Number one, there wasn't an exodus of teachers because how did we get those gains? And we did training every month for principals to make sure we were on the same page. The reason why I did that is because I knew that there would be some miscommunications. So they heard it from the horse's mouth every month, and it started the week after I got here, the training did. I trained executive directors every week the first semester, every week. And then second semester every other week. Why? Because we knew that some of them were not really strong in making sure they had leadership and good coaching at the principal level. So we had more training days. We had more consistent messaging. We started a document called In Sync every week that outlines key things, including some of the things on the defined autonomy list. Yes, that is true. This document here is another way to help. Next year will be even stronger because they already have the same messaging. So I'm sorry if some schools, yes, some EDs probably didn't, or were overzealous, or did more than they should have. Keep in mind too that sometimes the fears were exaggerated and the claims were exaggerated. Sometimes
They weren't.
I'm sorry, I'm talking, please. Okay? And I understand how it works in a big district. I see lots and lots of schools. You see one. So I make some generalizations because I have to. It's 274 schools. And I'm saying, yes, there's probably some schools that didn't have the same kind of instruction or the same type of coaching. But I've been in over 120 schools. I see what's going on in those schools. And I see what generally is happening on this change in this direction. So we will get it better. This will help. And other documents, the InSync will help, has helped, and will continue to help. And the training of principals and the training of EDs, we removed some EDs this year. And we're hiring other EDs. So is it fully baked? Is it fully all in one direction? No, it is not. This document will help with that. And we will have, again, zero vacancies at the start of the school year. Zero vacancies.
Mr. Mouse, would you like to identify your last one or two questions?
Yeah, let's do, well, I've got 10 minutes. Let's do 4 more questions. How's that?
4 more questions.
Okay, we're going to do one here, and then the rest. And you two. You first, and then you.
You should have. Because you're a man.
I heard a lot about, I was really glad to hear that you're going to have supports. And I heard that they can give feedback, principals can give feedback and say, this isn't working for us. We're a high-rated school, can we maybe do things a little bit more? Fantastic. I also heard something about surveys for students.
Yeah, we're going to get a survey company. Yeah.
That's fantastic too.
You have AAC.
I think that kid feedback is great. I'm hearing a lot of passionate parents. And I know that what is the best way to give feedback? What is the resource for us to give feedback to where we feel like we're being heard? What's that best way? Because you seem like somebody who is open to feedback. I'm hearing all these other things that you're saying, but then I'm hearing a lot of frustration. So what's the best way that parents can feel, okay, we're heard, and it's not just us screaming tonight that we're not at it.
Yeah, so I'm going to embarrass, the principal and the staff. Because the answer to your question is this. It's a big district. I can't get around this. This is actually an ineffective way to communicate.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it does provide an opportunity for some, so that's good. because you want face-to-face sometimes. But you're one small portion of the entire community, right? So I've done 4 of these, we have other people doing some others. And that goes for everything we do, face-to-face, what we try to do, we try to put it out on our website, on social media, and still it's not always the best. What is the best way? What is the best way to get feedback and to communicate? And everybody knows, every superintendent knows, the best way is through the school. When a school makes sense for the community, when the principal and leaders make sense, and we're going to principal, you know, when the principals make sense for the community and has a PTO and can debate face to face, that's when things work well and the community is calmed down. When they don't make sense, then that's when there's more disruption, and they want the superintendent to do something. Really, I mean, there's a lot of different schools. What I do is broad policy and broad procedures and practices and direct training of principals only once a month. Yes, so we get a lot of parent feedback, yes. Open to parent feedback. But I also know that a lot of the feedback is school related, is specific to the campus.
Because that's our
You know,
life.
so yes is the answer. But the bigger part of the answer is the principal makes sense for the community makes sense. And it just
Until you fire them.
amazes me that the amount of influence that the principal has. That's the people, most people don't care that much about what the district is doing. They care about the impact on the school and the classroom. That's what they care about. You had the second question, thank you, sorry.
So
I'm going to go over here.
do we have any security or assurance that our principals will be pushed out or encouraged to resign mid-year or in July based on test scores?
No.
No, if they're here, they're here. Okay? Now, let me put a footnote so that you know that these are complicated things. What happens if there's a situation like it happened at Eastwood, not the principal, the AP? And I can't tell you. And you're going to immediately jump, maybe somebody might, not you, but maybe somebody might jump immediately to, wait a minute, you said the test scores is not going to move out of principal. We have hired principals, they have a contract, so they're here. Now, having said that, we're not waiting till the end of it. If we know in November or December that instruction is not happening, and and even an A&B school, but it's still differentiated, or there's some other issues. For example, you don't know that a couple principals refuse to do the spec compliance the way they're supposed to do spec compliance. They said they wouldn't, and they just don't, and they get reminded they don't. We have an obligation on special education. That's a legal thing. Would you know that? No, you won't know that. Okay? Unless it gets to TDA, and then once it becomes public, we can say. So, there's lots of reasons for that, but the answer to your question directly is no, they're here. Okay? I'm going to go to the middle, sorry, and then I'm going to go to
Hi, I appreciate the opportunity. I know that maybe this isn't the most effective way to reach large groups of people, but I do appreciate the opportunity to be sitting in a room with you and ask you questions. I have 2 questions that are sort of broad strokes. One is, are the dates of MAP testing out?
Yes, it's on that list, but I don't know if it's published. Do you guys know? Not published yet.
So as a PTO, we're trying to plan out our year to make sure that we're not interfering and we're taking out of the test windows. Okay, because we're planning for the whole year. So just in terms of broad strokes, not having to change field trips or change things around, would be helpful.
I know we already have it, I told you, we looked at it last week or Monday, so the question is when, as soon as we can get it out. I don't wanna promise a hard date, but if not next week, the week after we can put it out. We think that's towards the end of June. How's that?
Okay, thank you. And then these sort of guidelines that I know are online for principals, are these available to the general public to be able to see as these change? Because I think that is part of the transparency, right? Is being, for us to be able to understand what your expectations are, and if they've changed and we don't know that, then it doesn't, yeah.
So we have added this as an appendix to the booklet. So it's going to be added as appendix F.
Okay.
And so it will be available online. We made those edits today, and so the live working document will be available on the website. So you will be able to access it. If there are any additions to this list, you will be able to find it there. So there will be a live working.
And we're also gonna ask principals, every time there's a change, to make sense of the community. In fact, we asked the principals to do this defined autonomy before June 30th. It was 2 weeks before the end of school. They had till June 30th to have a meeting on defined autonomy with the PTO or the SDMC or any group that they thought was appropriate for their community. So we, again, sense making at the principal level is important. So not only, am I doing this, but your principal should also do this.
I appreciate that.
Okay, you got one other follow-up question, and then we'll go here.
That's it.
Okay, great. Yes, ma'am.
So my question is kind of related to, you said there's principal, committee?
Principal advisory committee.
How many principals are part of that?
Was it 20? Do you guys remember? 30.
The reason I ask that is a lot of the questions, like, I understand that you're in charge of 274 schools and you have to have a broad stroke. The reason you're seeing a lot of questions that are very school specific is our view is that the broad stroke is missing a lot of the details that are underneath that broad stroke. I understand SUS has their own autonomy, recognize their differences, but each of these schools have their own culture, have their own strengths, and it's difficult for us to watch a broad stroke apply and drive out some really phenomenal teachers. So I don't know how you address that. I don't know how I understand you can't do this effectively, and it's not an effective way, but maybe you need to grow the advisory committee, maybe you need to have parents as part of the advisory committee. I don't feel like you're touching upon you got a big missive, absolutely. But we can't break what's working to accomplish fixing these MES tools.
So I think hopefully this defined autonomy document will help because it does outline. And again, I think work closely with your principal on this defined autonomy document. You see the autonomies you have. If teachers are leaving a lot in your school, and you're an A/B school, I don't know why that would be.
It's because the district is harassing them in their classrooms.
Yes.
That's the reason.
We have a lot of teachers who've applied for the schools. We're not having any problem filling those spots. And there's an employee value proposition. I don't want to get into that. I'll just say, we're going to have, this document will help with that, I hope. I think the principals will make more sense this year because they understand it.
Except
I think the EDs will also be stronger. We'll continue the training for EDs, we'll continue the training for principals, and hopefully that sense making will make your schools better. And I hope you also feel that most of you got the information you need on what defined autonomy was, or is rather, and that this will help clarify some of the misconceptions of what's going on in the district. And we will continue to have a good instructional year. Next year will be even better than this year.
Show the
Thank you
test
for your time
taker
today.
numbers, please.
All right. See you.
Yes.
Go, Kara.
Well, I see, he's done, but we're not done.
Yes.
Go ahead and ask.
Thank you. So I'm going to reinforce what this brother was asking, which is, I stood in there at County Statewide in October when you unveiled the lead system for principals, which then went under 8 different incarnations. This defined autonomy plan that you have, what assurances do we have that this isn't going to undergo similar rule changes throughout the year, and how do principals know that what they're going into right now is going to be the same thing that they're going to operate under all year? When will this be finalized and put out as a final plan?
Are you ignoring her?
I think he's ignoring me. I have a 15-year-old, I'm used to it. That's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable. It's not. That's what he does. It is what he does. Listen to us. Believe us.
It's okay.
It's not.